Christmas traditions are deep-rooted in Latin America, and although similar to the US in decorations, family gatherings, and gifts, the specific forms they take are often quite different. Join me for this brief look at how people celebrate Christmas in Latin America. The first obvious difference is that the person who brings gifts to kids on Christmas in this region tends to be not Santa Claus but either El Niño Dios, that is baby Jesus, or Los Tres Reyes Magos, the three wise men. Out of the two, baby Jesus is the most common, bringing presents from Argentina to Mexico, while the Reyes, the people the Bible specifically names as taking gifts to Jesus, are preferred in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, especially in Puerto Rico, where the tradition is probably the strongest in the continent. The three wise men, however, bring gifts not on December 25th, but January 6th. In part because of that, their popularity has subsided over time in some countries. In the 1950s in Mexico, for instance, children received few or no gifts at Christmas and had to wait until the Three Kings came along. But partly because of American influence, the gift giving was moved earlier to the 25th. Today then, kids might still receive presents for the Three Kings Day, but these tend to be much smaller. Meanwhile, as secularism has grown, Santa has tended to displace the other two, but he often has very different names. In Peru and Chile, for example, he's called Viejito Pascuero, roughly translated to Old Man Christmas. In Costa Rica, he's called Calacho, which is a nickname derived from Nicholas. In Brazil, he's called Bom Velhinho, or Good Old Man. And in much of South America, he's called Papa Noel. Because it is baby Jesus who brings gifts almost everywhere, in most of Latin America, people usually stay up waiting until the stroke of midnight to give each other presents. The Catholics among them, or at least the more religious in the group, first go to Misa de Gallo, a midnight mass that has medieval roots and is popular in Spain as well. The rest might stay and do an intercambio, what Americans call Secret Santa. More than anything, Latin Americans like to extend the celebrations. Colombia starts out the season on December 7th with the Noche de Velitas, or Candle Night. A tradition has people light up the streets with candles and lamps, which are supposed to represent wishes for the new year or gratitude for something that has happened to them in the previous year. The same night in Nicaragua is the tradition of La Gritería, or shouting, to celebrate the Virgin Mary known as La Purísima, the patron saint of Nicaragua. People go sing in the streets in her honor, and children receive sweets and toys in exchange. Puerto Rico likes to do parrandas, a kind of party where a group of friends goes from house to house, usually after 10 p.m. singing aguinaldos, or Christmas songs, eating and drinking and going and then moving on to the next house until the break of day. These specific parrandas are known as asaltos, literally assaults, because in the old days the houses where people went were not arranged beforehand. Today there's more planning, but the musical tradition persists and goes on for weeks before Christmas Day. Bolivia has a milder version of this. There's still people who go around singing, but in this case it's children who do so in exchange for sweets or some coins. Meanwhile, posadas, which you are probably more familiar with, are also similar but with a little more religious undertones, as they're supposed to reenact Mary and Joseph looking for shelter, starting 9 days before Christmas. Although usually thought of as Mexican, it is also a tradition in several countries in Central America, including Guatemala, Honduras, and Panama. Meanwhile, Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela have their own version with something called Novena de Navidad. They're still singing, although not the songs one sings at a posada. The main difference, however, is that there's more praying. People don't tend to go house to house, but do so around a nativity scene, and at the end people get specific treats like buñuelos, a kind of fried dough fritter, or natilla, a milk-based sweet spread known elsewhere as dulce de leche. Decorations are quite similar to the US, wreaths, trees, and such, but public displays tend to be much bigger, and nativity scenes are far more popular. Both Ecuador and Peru hold nativity contests, and people can be quite creative putting their own regional twist on them. There are also a number of country-specific traditions. In Bolivia, it is a tradition to give handcrafted gifts to show one truly cares. In Panama, people like to paint their houses as part of the celebrations and have a carnival-like parade. In Chile and Argentina, people love to go to the beach, given that it's their summer, and in Venezuela there's one of the most unique, Las Patinatas. This is the tradition of closing down whole avenues so people can skate while Christmas music plays. although this is not as big as it once was because of the problems Venezuela has faced. And of course, there's food, always food. In Argentina and Brazil, because it's their summer, they love to grill meat, what the Argentines call asado. The Brazilians who don't opt for turkey, or more traditionally bacalhau, or cod, or sometimes the salpicón, a side dish with a mayonnaise base that includes shredded chicken, potatoes, and corn. Uruguay likes to grill as much as its neighbors, but they prefer pork, specifically lechón, or piglet, with a first plate of lengua a la vinagreta, a cow tongue dish cut thinly and served with a vinaigrette base, eggs, and olive oil. Colombians like to eat pork for Christmas too, in a dish they call lechona, a rice-stuffed version with other vegetables and spices. In Peru, they go for turkey or ham, but Ayacucho loves their caldo de carnero, a kind of mutton soup that generally also has carrots, potatoes, and rice. Salvadorians also like to eat turkey to celebrate the season, but in the form of sandwiches with a special sauce, something they call panes con pavo. Cubans opt for various dishes including meats, but one that is quite popular is arroz con gris, a rice with red beans dish. Finally, just like with other aspects of Mexican cuisine, Mexicans eat different dishes depending what region of the country they are from. In central Mexico, the most popular are romerito dishes, a kind of native plant that is usually boiled and often served with shrimp and mole, a kind of Mexican sauce. In other parts, pozole, a kind of rich broth, or tamales, corn dough filled with meat, cooked in husks, are the main entrees. There are also special drinks. In Puerto Rico, there's the classic coquito, a sort of eggnog-like drink but coconut flavored. In Colombia, people like to drink salpicón, a drink that is actually a tropical fruit cocktail mixed with soda. Paraguay keeps the fruit but not the soda. They prefer white wine as their base to make clericó. Chileans, meanwhile, bust out their cola de mono, or monkey tail, a milk-based drink with sugar and cinnamon. In Mexico, people like to drink canela, a kind of cinnamon tea, or atole, a corn-based drink that can come in vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate flavors, although if the latter, it gets called something else, champurrado. And that covers our quick look at Christmas in Latin America. Hopefully one day you'll get to enjoy the traditions for yourself. Merry Christmas!